ago, during the Second World War, the Japanese army launched a surprise attack on a US army camp on the China-Burma border. Amazingly, the American soldiers there were saved by a 13-year-old boy who led them through the jungle to safety. One of those saved was Army engineer Eugene Lance. However, because he and his companions couldn't communicate with the boy, none of them knew anything about him, not even where he came from or what his real name was. They just called him Shauheiser, or Little Fellow.
I keep saying my Shauheiser like he really belongs to me.
The valley's beautiful looking out there now.
Look at that. I mean, that's such a picture. People would like to sit here and paint. If they were painting, they'd paint that. And today, we take it for granted, you know, normally.
Eugene Lance had joined the United States Army in March of 1943, and he was to serve throughout the rest of the Second World War. As an engineer, he took part in the construction of the Lido Road from India to Yunnan province, considered a vital transport route for China after the Japanese had taken control of the Chinese coast and occupied Indochina. Young Americans poured into the jungle to take part in the construction and to fight the Japanese. In 1944, the Lido Road, by this time called the Stillwell Road, finally reached Myitkyina, where it was linked to the Burma Road.
I was 19 when I went in. Yes, it changed my life. It made me appreciate my life, put it that way. To get home, I wasn't jumping up and down like a crazy person. I still had a family, you know. I had a son.
On March the 13th, 1943, Lance began his basic training combined with technical training in pipeline installation. After this, he was sent to India, where he arrived on Christmas Eve. In Calcutta, he and his colleagues built a tank farm, and then they laid a pipeline from the city to Assam. After the completion of the pipeline, Lance volunteered for duty in China, where he was assigned to a maintenance team operating from Kunming to just below the Burmese border. As the only welder in the group, he was based at Kunming Airport, where he reassembled equipment that had been broken into pieces small enough to be transported by plane. His team also repaired or rebuilt small bridges that had been bombed by the retreating Japanese army. Working among these isolated mountains, Gene found that his biggest challenge was loneliness.
We were away from home and young kids, but we knew that we were there to do a job that had to be done. But a lot of loneliness, you know. You were alone, even though you had people around you, you were still alone. But I think basically most of the fellows were pretty high-spirited.
For a time, Lance's group was based at Monkey Bridge near the camp of C Company on the Ding Hao branch of the new Burma Road. Monkey Bridge, which was adjacent to the China-Burma border, had been built entirely of trees, vines and branches by the local Li Su tribespeople. While the bridge looked picturesque, it was simply not up to carrying heavy equipment, and so it had to be replaced with a new iron and steel structure. Working long hours, Lance and his companions had little time to feel sorry for themselves, even though, at just 19 years of age, he was missing his family very much. Being something of a poet, he wrote the following verse to his wife and son. Thought of you as I looked out to the raging sea, your calm, beautiful face comes to me. A ship plows through wind and foam, but I send my love to you at home. Accept my love, accept it please do, before ere long I'll come home to you. It was around this time that Xiaohaizi came into his life.
We were just forming our camp there, and we figured these grounds would be the best thing, because we had room for a whole bunch of trucks and things. You can see some of the pictures. And he just strolled by himself. But once he went by, he just stayed out of sight there for the whole day. And that evening, he was still there. He never walked any further than maybe a city block. And was just sitting on the rocks up there, right near the bridge, as a matter of fact. And I guess the next morning, he was still there. He was standing there. So I invited him over. You know, I wanted to feed him. I figured he was hungry or something. And I asked him where his family was. He, you know, I said, you know, your mama, papa, you know? And he says, they're gone, you know, so go. That's what he was saying. So I didn't realize what happened. So one day, he stayed there. And I brought him right in my tent and set him up and made a cot for him. And he just never left. So maybe after 2 or 3 weeks went by, I was concerned about what his family must be thinking of where he is. So he agreed to take me to his family. So I got a little Jeep there, and I started up the road, and after about a mile or so, we start walking up this mountain, then down the mountain. And in a little hut, like thatch, they handmade, they went in there, and there was this woman there with she had about 2 children smaller, no, 3 children smaller than him. Then she had a bigger girl. And they were just all huddled there, doing nothing. And of course, I had taken food with me. I had a whole bunch of food.